Welcome back to Out of the Pout TV, where I'll be highlighting the new and interesting movies and shows that I've discovered this past week. So in this video, we're going to get your trick or treat on and cover all the Halloween themed stuff that's now streaming. So with over 50 suggestions I have for you, I'm going to break this one up into 2 parts. So don't miss the second part next week. We'll have even more stuff for you. Also, I'm going to place some links to the sections in the streaming services that you can click on and go directly to and help find even more stuff, because there's no way, there's just a ton of stuff. There's so much stuff, there's no way I can carry all of it. So click on those links, they'll take you all to the Halloween themed areas. Hopefully all that helps you to get your Hallows Eve on. So that there's Prime Horror, there's Hulu-ween, there's Terror on Tubi. I told you about the Tubi app, it's a lot of free stuff on there. HBO has one. Amazon has some horror categories if you just have to kind of scroll down to find them. Netflix has a Halloween favorites category, or you can just type in Halloween in the search area and just get your crazy Halloween on. Now, I've tried to break these down into kind of categories for Halloween. And the first one we're going to start with is hauntings and possessions. First up is Child's Play. Now this is the 2019 version on Hulu. There's of course the classic versions back from the 80s and lots and lots of sequels. In this new version, a single mother gifts her son Andy a Buddy doll for his birthday. We all know where this is going. Unaware of its more sinister nature, a contemporary reimagining of the '88 horror classic and its sequels. Now for me, those classics, I think Bride of Chucky is probably my favorite, with the bride that was voiced by Jennifer Tilly. So check out that on Hulu, Child's Play. Did you hear that? Next on Netflix is Malevolent. It's a brother-sister team who fake paranormal encounters for cash. They get more than they bargained for when a job at a haunted estate turns very, very real. So they have this brother and sister team, along with a couple of their friends, who kind of go around faking paranormal activity and get money to kind of rid these paranormal activities away from these haunted houses, supposedly. But it kind of backfires on them. So that's Malevolent on Netflix. Next is a classic film called Evil Dead 2 from '87. It's on HBO. Sam Raimi's full throttle sequel finds whacked out undead basher Ash, played by the legend Bruce Campbell, battling another batch of possessed pals at a remote cabin. The crazy way they shoot this and the unique special effects make this movie a horror classic. That's Evil Dead 2. It's my favorite Evil Dead, by the way. Next is another great film, The Conjuring, from 2013. Now, there's a whole series of these that I've enjoyed as well. HBO also has part 2, and Netflix, I think, also has The Conjuring. Basically, we have paranormal investigators Lorraine and Ed Warren confront a powerful demonic entity when they try to help parents and a kid who's been terrorized by their secluded farmhouse. It has Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga, Ron Livingston, and Lily Taylor, and that's The Conjuring. And let's check out Ryan Reynolds in the Amityville Horror on HBO. In this terrifying remake, a young family moves into a house with a dark past and soon learns it's inhabited by a sinister force, and it's not Green Lantern. So that's the Amityville Horror on HBO. Okay, so let's hit some classic films on HBO, and there's a ton of them on HBO. First off, we have The Shining from 1980. I first saw this thing in a drive-in. That's how This is on HBO. Jack Nicklaus, Jack Torrance, basically becomes a winter caretaker at this isolated overlook hotel in Colorado, hoping to cure his writer's block. He settles in along with his wife, Wendy, and his son, Danny, who is plagued by psychic premonitions. So this kid has like little special powers, so to speak. This is one scary movie. Red Rum, Danny? Anyone? Red Rum? Anyway, The Shining, 1980. Check that out if you haven't, or just rewatch it. You know it's worth it. Also from HBO, 1982's Poltergeist, which kind of brought back the haunted house. Evil spirits abduct a suburban family's daughter, causing chaos and havoc. Joe Beth Williams and Craig T. Nelson star in Poltergeist. Now I mentioned this before on HBO, but on Netflix. There's a docuseries called The Movies That Made Us, and right now they're doing a bunch of haunted films. They're doing Halloween, and they're doing this. They also did this next one called A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. This is where Freddy Krueger comes from. So a group of teenagers are terrorized by Freddy Krueger, an evil being from another world who gets to his victims by entering their dreams and killing them with gloves that are made out of knife blades attached to each finger. So that's pretty freaky. So you can't fall asleep, because you might dream and then he's going to get you. This also has Johnny Depp in one of his very first, I don't know if it might even be his first role. That's Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. Also on Netflix, The Haunting of Hill House. This is one season. So while investigating a ghost story for his latest novel, a skeptical writer receives a call from his sister that triggers a chain of fateful haunted events. This series really has some very freaky scenes. It even freaked me out, and that takes a lot because I have had night terrors and sleep paralysis my entire life, so it takes a lot to freak me out. But this series had some scenes in it that really did it. So check that out on Netflix, The Haunting of Hill House. So the last one in this category is Joon the Grudge. This is on Prime Video. This original Japanese one will give you some chills. So volunteer home care worker Rika is assigned to visit a family. She is cursed and chased by two revengeful friends. A woman is brutally murdered by her husband and her son, Toshio. Each person that lives in or visits this haunted house is murdered or disappears. Check out the Pluto TV if you want to see the Sarah Michelle Gellar version, simply called The Grudge. And that was kind of the Americanized version of the original The Grudge, which is on Prime. Check both those out if you want. They're both very good and both very scary. Oh. Okay, which brings us to the next category, which I'm calling the classics, which kind of is a vampires, werewolves, mummies, and more kind of thing. The first one I could suggest is 30 Days of Night, and that's on Hulu. This is a story of an isolated Alaskan town that is plunged into darkness for a month. So you know how in the winter they have like days and days where the sun never comes up, and of course it's the opposite of the summer, but of course this takes place at the winter, and it's perfect for vampires. So each year when the sun sinks below the horizon, so as the last rays of light fade, the town is attacked by a bloodthirsty gang of vampires bent on an uninterrupted orgy of destruction because they don't have to worry about the sun anymore. Only the small town's husband and wife sheriff team stand between the survivors and certain destruction. And this stars Josh Hartnett. So 30 Days of Night on Hulu. So this next one I'm surprised didn't do as well or isn't as well known, and that's Jennifer's Body. Was free on Prime, but now it's $3.99. I think they knew Halloween was coming up and they took it off the free section and made you pay for it. But it is free on Criterion and I think IMDb with subscription. But this is a hidden gem, and it doesn't get the credit it deserves. So we have nerdy reserve bookworm played by Amanda Seyfried and her arrogant, conceited cheerleader friend played by Megan Fox. And so they're best friends, though they share little in common. They share less in common when Jennifer mysteriously gains an appetite for human blood after a disastrous fire at a local bar. And that's Megan Fox's character. The high school's male classmates are steadily killed in gruesome attacks. The young girl played by Amanda Seyfried must somehow uncover the truth behind her friend's transformation and find a way to stop the bloodthirsty rampage before it reaches her own boyfriend. Keep an eye out also for J.K. Simmons and a very interesting little small part by Chris Pratt. So that's Jennifer's Body, starring Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried. More recent film, The Invisible Man from 2020 on HBO. The Unseen Maniac returns to terrorize his former girlfriend in this reboot starring Elizabeth Moss. So when the main character's abusive ex takes his own life and leaves her his fortune, she suspects his death was a hoax. As a series of coincidences turned lethal, Cecilia works to prove that she is being hunted by somebody nobody can see and just not going crazy because people think she's like going crazy. Anyway, that's an Invisible Man. Very good remake on HBO. Next we have another classic, which I can rewatch this movie over and over again. Even its sequel is great. And that's The Mummy from 1999, and that's on HBO. So we have adventurer Brandon Fraser and opposing teams of treasure hunters awaken an evil 3,000-year-old Egyptian mummy in this thriller. At an archaeological dig in the ancient city of Hammurabi, and I know I'm butchering that, an American serving in the French Foreign Legion accidentally awakens a mummy who begins to wreak havoc while he searches for the reincarnation of his long-lost love. This also stars the wonderful Rachel Weisz. Next, still on HBO from 2005, is Tim Burton's Corpse Bride. Set back in the late 1800s in a Victorian village, a man and a woman by the names of Victor Van Dort and Victoria Elverglad are betrothed because the Everglotts need the money or else they'll be living on the streets, and the Van Dorts want to be in high society. But when things go wrong at the wedding rehearsal, Victor goes into the woods to practice his vows. Just as soon as he gets them right, he finds himself married to Emily, the corpse bride. While Victoria awaits on the other side, there's a rich newcomer that may take Victoria's place. So, 2 brides, 1 groom. Who will Victor pick? That's Tim Burton's Corpse Bride. Next in the classics category, we have Red Riding Hood, also on HBO. This is from 2011. Now, Valerie is in love with a brooding outsider, Peter, but her parents have arranged for her to marry another man. Unwilling to lose each other, Valerie and Peter plan to run away together when they learn that Valerie's older sister has been killed by a werewolf that prowls the dark forest surrounding their village. Hungry for revenge, the people call on famed wolf hunter Father Solomon to help them kill the wolf. But Solomon's arrival brings unintended consequences as he warns that the wolf, who takes human form by day, could be any one of them. So again, we have Amanda Seyfried and Gary Oldman and Billy Burke, and that's Red Riding Hood. Now over on Netflix, brought this up before and talked about Fear Street, and there's 3 parts to this series. It's about witches, or a witch haunting. So we have a circle of teenage friends accidentally encounter the ancient evil responsible for a series of brutal murders that have plagued their town for over 300 years. So that's Fear Street, parts 1, 2, 3. They're all very good. I think the first one was probably the best, but definitely the entire series is worth watching. Okay, next in the category is Fright Night from 2011. Now, this is on Paramount and Epix, and this new version has Colin Farrell. So I say new version because this is a remake of the equally good and maybe probably a little campy original from 1985 with Roddy McDowall, and that one is on Fubo. So this version is on Paramount and Epix. But what we have is when a nice new neighbor moves in next door, Charlie, our main character, discovers that he's an ancient vampire who preys on the community. So now he has troubles convincing other people of this and what to do. Can he save his neighborhood from the creature with the help of this famous vampire killer, Peter Vincent? Well, we'll soon have to watch and find out. So that's Fright Night, the 2011 version with Colin Farrell, or check out the 1985 version with Roddy McDowall. The new version's on Paramount and Epix. Now this next one is a little bit more of an action adventure than scary, and that's Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. And this is on Hulu. The siblings Hansel and Gretel are left alone in the woods by their father and captured by a dark witch in a candy house. However, they kill the witch and escape from the spot. Now this sets them up for years later. The orphans have become famous witch hunters. When 11 children go missing from a small village, the mayor summons Hansel and Gretel to rescue them. And they save the red-haired Mina from the local sheriff who wants to burn her, accusing Mina of witchcraft. Soon they discover that the blood moon will approach in 3 days, and the powerful dark witch Muriel is responsible for the abduction of children. She tends to use the children together with a secret ingredient, so basically the ceremony makes them even more powerful. So meanwhile, while they're investigating all this and trying to find out what's going on, where the kids are, and trying to stop the witches, Hansel and Gretel start discovering secrets about their parents and their past. So we have Jeremy Renner, Gemma Arterton, and Famke Janssen star in this Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters on Hulu. So on Fubo, Showtime, Peacock, AMC Plus, DirecTV, we have 2004's Van Helsing. So Van Helsing, our main character, is in the world to rid all evil, even if not everyone agrees with him. So the Vatican sends this monster hunter and his ally Carol to Transylvania. They've been sent to this land to stop the powerful Count Dracula. So while they're there, they join forces with a gypsy princess called Anna Valerius, who is played by Kate Beckinsale. And she is determined to end an ancient curse on her family by destroying the vampire. They just don't know how and where to start. So this stars Hugh Jackman as Van Helsing and Kate Beckinsale, who is also in the next one. This series started with Underworld. So the original Underworld from 2003 and some of its sequels are on Hulu and Netflix. So we have vampires and werewolves. They have this waged a nocturnal war against each other for centuries. But all bets are off when a female vampire named Celine, who's famous for her strength and werewolf hunting prowess, becomes smitten with a peace-loving male werewolf hybrid, Michael. And that's where it sets off. So we have vampires, werewolves, all in Underworld from 2003. Very good. He's right behind me, right? So that's into the classic category. Now we have aliens and monsters. And we're going to start off with Signs, which is on Hulu. So we get Preacher Graham Heiss loses his faith in God after his wife dies in a brutal car accident. He lives with his children and brother in a farmhouse. Crop circles start to appear in their cornfields. He kind of dismisses this as mischief by miscreants, neighbors, kids goofing off. But after hearing strange noises and watching news coverage on crop circles appearing all over the world, the family grows suspicious of alien activity. Now they must stick together as a family and believe to survive and escape the ordeal. This film stars, and I love it, it's rewatchable for me. I try to catch it all the time. It stars Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix. Now this next one I totally stumbled across, and I don't think many people have seen this, and it's called The Midnight Meat Train. It's on Tubi and stars Bradley Cooper before he got big. He plays a photographer obsessed with pursuit of this dark subject matter leads him into the path of a serial killer who stalks late night commuters on the subway, ultimately butchering them in the most gruesome ways. This is a very dark film and pretty scary, and I think it has a twist at the end if I remember correctly, but catch it. If you like spooky, scary, monster kind of things, The Midnight Meat Train on Tubi could just be for you. So next we have the J.J. Abrams Cloverfield from 2008 that started all that dancing around stuff that he's done with this movie. This is from 2008 and it's on HBO. So we get 5 young New Yorkers who are throwing their friend a going-away party the night that a monster the size of a skyscraper appears in the city in New York. And this is told from the point of view of their video camera that they kind of lug around with you. It's the film is documented of their attempt to survive the most surreal, horrifying events of their lives. It's pretty good. I really enjoy it. If you get motion sickness easily, this may not be for you because there is a lot of camera movement because it's all kind of handheld. But check that out. It's Cloverfield. Okay, also on HBO in 2014. I told you HBO has a lot of stuff. 2014's Godzilla. So there I was, a young Alapal, spending as many Sundays watching the local TV station in Seattle with their theme movie showing called Monster Theater. So every Sunday they would have this 2-hour block or hour-and-a-half block they called Monster Theater, and they played monster movies from Japan every single week. Loved it. I saw them all, and that's probably why I like this remake and almost all of these kind of remakes. So when the world is shaken by the appearance of an enormous monster, Godzilla may be humanity's only hope. Acting as a reboot to Toho's Godzilla, the film is the 30th title in this long-running franchise. Wow, 30 of them. It's crazy. It is the first length film in legendary MonsterVerse, which also includes the titles such as Kong Skull Island and Godzilla vs. Kong, which is more recent. But check out the original 2014 Godzilla on HBO. So here's a couple of quick ones. We have Attack of the Block on Hulu. It's a teen gang in South London defend their block from an alien invasion. So it's all from their perspective, a little updated. That's kind of a fun one. And then we also have The Host, which is also on Hulu. It's a monster emerges from Seoul's Han River and begins attacking people. One victim's loving family does what it can to rescue her from its clutches. So check both those out, Attack on the Block and The Host on Hulu. Next, from 1998, is truly a hidden gem. It's called Dark City. This film is pretty much almost all forgotten, but by sci-fi or horror fans. And what it involves is a man struggles with memories of his past, which includes a wife he cannot remember in a nightmarish world no one else seems ever to wake up from. It stars Rufus Sewell, Kiefer Sutherland, and Jennifer Connelly, and he plays John Murdoch, who awakens alone in a strange hotel to find that he has lost his memory and is wanted for a series of brutal and bizarre murders that, of course, he doesn't remember. So while trying to piece together his past, he stumbles upon a fiendish underworld controlled by a group of beings known as the Strangers, who possess the ability to put people to sleep and alter the city and its inhabitants. Now Murdoch must find a way to stop them before they take control of his mind and destroy him. So that's Dark City, really good. Check this one out. You'll have to search for it for a rental, but it's well worth it. Okay, now this is a classic as well, and unfortunately from 1982, The Thing, it's on Prime for $3.99 or free on Starz and DirecTV. So, members of an American scientific research outpost in Antarctica find themselves battling a parasitic alien organism capable of perfectly imitating its victims. So what it is this alien who can make himself look just like the people or things that it possesses. So it makes itself a copy of you, like if it took over you. so other people don't know that you are now the alien. They don't know which members of the team have already been assimilated, and their paranoia threatens to tear them apart. Kurt Russell at his best, The Thing. So that's it for this week. Stay tuned for part 2 next week. Don't forget to subscribe and comment, and I will see you later. Thanks. Ooh.